Erica Mans writes, okay, I love this show. I watch you guys every single day before my shift. Anyway, my question is, why is it that almost every single movie coming out now is either a remake or a sequel? Why doesn't Hollywood do anything original anymore? So yeah, why is it almost everything a remake or sequel now?
Great question. I get comments and questions like this all the time, especially when we hear about a new remake or a new sequel coming out. We will often see on the chat boards and emails coming in of people lamenting to the heavens, shaking their fists, saying, why nothing but remakes and sequels? It's nothing but remakes and sequels. But what I try to tell my friends is, look, wait a minute, calm down, take a step back and keep this in perspective. There's not all that many reboots and sequels. I know it feels like it, especially when you're on a show like ours, because we tend to talk a lot about the reboots or the sequels. But one of the reasons we talk a lot about them is because they're all names of films, because it's a sequel that we're all familiar with. When I'm talking to you about, I don't know, Fast and Furious 6, we're talking on common ground because we all have Fast and the Furious films in our past. We've seen them, we know them, and so we can talk about Fast and Furious 6. When we talk about a reboot, well, it's about a movie you've heard of, so we can talk about some common ground. So we don't, talk a lot well in advance of like new and original films well in advance until they're getting closer to coming out, because it's not something that you as the audience member have a lot of familiarity with. But to just reemphasize my point that it's not every movie out there is a sequel or a reboot. As a matter of fact, they're in the minority. They're in the vast minority. I've pulled up the Box Office Mojo, and Dennis, you might want to bring this up. This Box Office Mojo film release schedule. We're going to start in January. Let's look at the films that have been released so far this year. So we're going to start in January. Okay, we're going to start with Texas Chainsaw Massacre. All right, that was a reboot and a sequel, actually. So there's that one. Then we move down. We've got Gangster Squad, not a reboot or a sequel. We've got A Haunted House, not a reboot or a sequel. We've got Broken City, not a reboot or a sequel. The Last Stand, not a reboot or a sequel. Mama, not a reboot or a sequel. Then we've got Hansel and Gretel, Witch Hunters, bad, but not a reboot or a sequel. Movie 43, also bad, but not a reboot or a sequel. And Parker, not a reboot or a sequel. All right, so let's move on to February then. There we go. We've got Bullet to the Head, not a reboot or sequel. Stand Up Guys, not a reboot or a sequel. Warm Bodies, not a reboot or a sequel. We got Identity Thief, not a reboot or a sequel. Side Effects, not a reboot or a sequel. Beautiful Creatures, not a reboot or a sequel. Escape from Planet Earth, not a reboot or a sequel. A Good Day to Die Hard, there, we've got a sequel. We've also got Safe Haven, not a reboot or a sequel. Dark Skies, not a reboot or a sequel. Snitch, not a reboot or a sequel. All right, let's move into March. In March, we've got 21 and Over, not a reboot or a sequel. Jack the Giant Slayer, not a reboot or a sequel. The Last Exorcism Part 2, there we got a sequel. Phantom, not a reboot or a sequel. Dead Man Down, not a reboot or a sequel. Oz the Great and Powerful is weird. It's not a reboot. It's not a sequel. It's kind of a prequel based on the book. But you know what? For this argument's sake, let's put it in the category of a reboot or a sequel. So there's one. Then we go down to The Call, not a reboot or a sequel. The Incredible Burt Wonderstone, not a reboot or a sequel. Admission, not a reboot or a sequel. The Croods, not a reboot or a sequel. Olympus Has Fallen, not a reboot or a sequel. Do you see a pattern developing here? My point is that, yeah, sometimes because there's a lot of talk, a lot of websites and movie shows like us will talk a lot about reboots or sequels. And so when a new one gets announced, it can feel like there's a lot of them. But I just gave you stone cold proof. We just went through 3 months of releases this year. And what do we come up with? 3 of them out of like 25 or 30 films? So I understand it can feel like it's all reboots and sequels, but it's not. There's still the vast, vast minority of the films that actually get produced. Now, as we get into the summer season, that's going to feel a little bit different because that's the blockbuster season. We're going to get franchise films and recognizable names. So it'll start to skew a little bit more. But even then, there's a lot of the big blockbusters coming out this year are completely original. You got films like Pacific Rim and so forth. So I know it feels like it, but they're not all reboots and sequels. As a matter of fact, they're still the vast minority.
Hey guys, if you like this video, hit the thumbs up button and make sure you subscribe to our AMC Movie News YouTube channel. It's free and will keep you up to date on all the latest movie news, as well as our daily AMC Movie Talk Show. Also, be sure to follow us on Facebook and Twitter to find out about our special promotions, contests, and prize giveaways.